Hello, everyone. Welcome to Achieving Success with Olivia Atkin. I am your host, Olivia Atkin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We give you real-life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top-notch guests. Today, we are speaking with Luke Hessler. Luke is the co-founder and CEO of Ace Branding. Ace Branding is a digital PR firm whose mission is to service those who serve others by amplifying the voices of impact-driven thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and businesses. You can find Luke on LinkedIn by searching Luke Hessler or by going to his website, acebranding.com, or emailing him at luke@acebranding.com. Hello, Luke. It's fantastic having you on the show today.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
I'm so excited because there's so many different things we can be talking about today. Let's dive right in. To start off the show, can you tell me what success means and looks like to Luke Hessler?
Absolutely. So there was a quote that I first heard when I was 19 years old. I first got into the personal development world, and it was by a guy named Napoleon Hill. And he said that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And I found that to be very true. When I was younger, to me, what that ideal was becoming, someone of high status, someone who had a nice car, a nice house, someone who could travel the world and do all of these types of things. And it was very materialistic to me. And that was what I wanted. And that was transparently how I defined success. Now, at 31 years old, after being in the game for, about a decade now, I define success a little bit differently. And just in the sense that, like, I still think it is the pursuit of a worthy ideal, but my worthy ideal has changed. Instead of wanting the status and all of those things, primarily what my goal is I just want to have a great life. I want peace of mind. I want to have financial freedom. I want to have a great family. I want to be a fantastic father. And like, those are the things that I want to do. And I want to impact the world and leave it a better place than I found it. So to me, success isn't objective in the sense that, the person who's a multimillionaire is a success, and then the person who's a school teacher is a failure. Because I've met tons of multimillionaires who are depressed and sad, and they thought they got everything they thought they wanted, but it wasn't really what they wanted. And then I meet school teachers who are extremely happy and they love it, even though they don't have a whole lot of money. So I think success can be different for each person, but as long as you are living your dream and you are living life on your terms, I define that person as a success.
And I love that because that totally aligns with how I view success. And really, the power of this show is that success can be ever evolving, it can look different to all of us, and that the status quo, that what society has made us think success looks like, is not a one size fits all ideal or real reality for everyone, and that's perfectly okay. And I love how you brought up the impact that you also make to others, because I think that's so important in leaving the world better than we came into it. Even if that's one person, right? You've impacted one person in a positive manner, or thousands. It's not necessarily about the reach that you have. It's about what you've done with the abilities that you have. And you touched upon something that I definitely want to dive more into. So you brought up that you entered the becoming a digital entrepreneur at 19,
Mhm.
and you've now been in the game for a little over a decade. So for you, what made you decide to, at 19, start your first digital business and become an entrepreneur? And what has that journey been like, and how has it shaped you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So Tony Robbins says, when the pain of staying the same outweighs the pain of change, then you change. And that's really what happened to me. When I was 19 years old, I was at school at Michigan State University studying international relations with a specialization in business. And, I had high hopes for myself. I had expectations to become successful. That was what the standard that was set within my family. It was a standard of excellence. And I expected to be able to succeed. However, I made some poor decisions my freshman year of college. I decided, instead of majoring in business, I decided to major in partying at my fraternity. And I like to say that God kept me on a pretty short leash because I didn't get one, not two, but three minor in possessions of alcohol. And for those of you guys that are listening internationally, it means you get in trouble for drinking underage. And I came from a family that was, and still is, very conservative, very Christian, and so I might as well have murdered someone in their eyes, right? And so now it was like I'm like falling off the ship. My mom's like, "What did I do wrong? I thought I gave you everything." And like I remember this one moment where I was in the drunk tank, and I promised my mom after the second MIP that I wasn't going to drink again, and I was. And then here I am. I found myself in this freaking drunk tank again at 2 in the morning, and I had to call someone for bail because I had no money. It was only $250 to get out of this drunk tank, but I had $0, and so I have to call my mom again. And I'm looking at this person next to me. This guy has puked on himself. This person next to me peed all over themselves. And I like look in this little mirror, and it's like a foggy, nasty mirror. And I look back at the person that I was. I was overweight and just I was drunk and it was nasty. And I just like I didn't like the person I was looking back in the mirror. I didn't even recognize myself. I was disgusted with the person that I was. And then I had to call my mom and tell her to bail me out of jail again after I promised her I wasn't going to go and drink. And I just remember in that moment, I drew a line in the sand and I said, never again. I will no longer be a loser. I will no longer prioritize these short term happiness things, for this and sacrifice my long term dreams. Like, I'm going to get my life together and show myself, show my parents, and show the freaking world that I'm actually somebody. And so I made that decision in that moment. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew I was going to go be successful. And so 4 months later, after that, I ended up, through the grace of God, I ended up meeting somebody who was 25 years old and he was making $40,000 a month through affiliate marketing. And I didn't know that was possible. He didn't have a college degree. He wasn't a freaking genius. Okay. But he was making 40 grand a month. I mean, he was making more than my dad, who was a doctor. And so I saw this. I was like, this looks awesome because I didn't want to sit in a desk at a chair my whole life or get a career and like kind of just go to a job that I hated. Like, I didn't want to go and do that stuff. I wanted to kind of like do my own thing, but I didn't know how to go and do it. And so I met this guy and he showed me the ropes of how to be able to go and build an online business. And that's what changed everything for me. My first 6 months, I freaking fell flat on my face. I had no success. I frankly just lost stuff. My grades suffered because I put so much energy into it. My friends, my relationships, my everything suffered because I was so all in on this. But after some time, I ended up figuring it out, and things really started to take off after that first 6 months. Because I think in life, like one of the best ways to succeed is you figure out what doesn't work, right? It's like when you figure out what doesn't work enough times, eventually you can go and figure out what works as long as you're willing to deal with failures. And that's frankly what happened to me and how I was able to kind of get my start as a digital entrepreneur.
And I think you brought up some amazing points there that I really want to emphasize. The fact that you changed how you looked at what you were doing degree wise and what you were doing in college. You also didn't go into college and not make mistakes. I think so many of us think, okay, you know, being part of a college environment, whether you're female or male, means joining Greek life. I was in Greek life myself, and I'm still part of my Greek community. But it is something too that when people associate Greek life, they associate with the drinking, the partying. And, yeah, there's a part of Greek life, right? And even if you're not a part of Greek life, that in college is going out, exploring, testing some boundaries as well. But for you, you realize, okay, I'm testing the boundaries and I'm getting in trouble for testing these boundaries. And even having to make that call to your parents of like, yeah, it happened again. And, I think a lot of people have similar calls like that. It might not be being in the drunk tank. It might be I went and spent this money we discussed not spending again. I went and, you know, went and did something else. It could be a plethora of things that you can say, I'm not going to do. I'm going to have self control over this. But you don't have the tools at that moment in time or the clarity to have that self control. So I
Mm.
think it's really something that, as you said, when you hit the moment of, okay, no, I'm really sticking to it. I don't care what it takes, you dive all in and you have to then from that moment on make sure for yourself you're going to have that discipline. And like you said, even with your business, having that discipline when you started out meant for 6 months you didn't have that life that you had before. Relationships were put on the line, your priorities shifted, and it hurt the relationships and individuals who weren't ready for that, and you being in that space, but you knew that's where you wanted to be and you wanted to dive all in for it. So how did you manage, as those relationships started to teeter and as your business grew, having those conversations with people of like, I'm all in, and this is what time commitment I have in this space, and this is the time commitment I have in that space.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and that was probably the hardest thing for me to navigate at that point in my life because I'm a recovering people pleaser. Okay, I like to say is that I like to be liked, and so therefore it was very difficult for me to be able to do something that I knew was going to make me less liked. I thought for long term they will understand it and they'll respect it, you know, but short term I knew there was going to be a little bit of a gap, and so this was a really difficult thing for me to go out there and deal with. But what I realize is that in life, there's always seasons of friends. You know, like when you think about it, like when you are in high school, at least for me, when I was in high school, I thought that I was going to be friends with these guys forever. You know, and then I go to college, and it's like now I have a new group of friends, so I think I'm going to be friends with them forever. And then you get a job, and now you become friends with your work people, and you're like, I'm going to be friends with these people forever. And it's like when you're younger, you think that friends are going to be there forever. But if you talk to older people, like I talk to my grandparents or I talk to, you know, people that have been around for a long time in life, there's really only a very select few individuals that are really there forever for all the seasons. I mean, think of it kind of like a movie, right? Your life is a movie and you should be the main character in your movie. But when you think of like at the end of the movie, there's all these credits, right? And all of these different characters that were in the movie. But like you maybe only recognize like five of the names in there because those are the main characters in the movie. But then there's like, you know, train station person number one, train station person number two, right? So we have to realize in life that the vast majority of people that you meet, they're going to be extras in the movie of your life. And so it's about being able to identify who are going to be the main characters in my life, who are the key relationships that will actually be here forever. And those are the ones you really want to focus on and you really want to maintain. And you want to be able to serve those individuals. And so for me, a lot of that turned into family for me, especially my wife, my parents, things like this. And then a couple key friends that are there. But again, in that early stages, it was really difficult because I didn't think like this. And so the way that I did think though, and this was what really served me, is I had a philosophy that like failure is a result of letting your wants of today get in the way of your dreams for tomorrow. And that was probably said before, but I quote myself on it because I never heard from anybody else. So sorry, whoever I probably stole that from in a book I read. But anyways, that's something that I live by. And I think about that, and I was like, well, all of my friends at that time were living for the wants of today. And I was doing that too. So it's not like I'm judging them, right? But it's like they want to have fun short term. For me, I had a new change of mindset where now I was sacrificing my short term wants for my long term dreams. And I knew that like I couldn't expect someone who didn't have my vision to understand my sacrifice. And so I gave grace to them and I said, hey, I'm not going to make it to the party. I'm not going to come to the fraternity today. I'm not going to be able to go and do these things. And yes, they did give me some pushback, but I was like, guys, I got to do me today. And those were hard decisions to go out there and make, especially when you were younger. But what's so interesting is that when I made that shift, what I started to do is I started to attract all these other people into my life who were abiding by that same philosophy. They were ready to sacrifice their short-term wants for their long-term dreams. And so now I created a new community that was around my new priorities. And I always tell people, I'm like, don't be a product of your environment. Make your environment become a product of you. And if you can focus on that and you can focus on changing you and like how you think, how you feel, how you see the world, how you act, naturally the people that you attract into your life are going to go and change as well. So I think the real secret is not focusing on trying to change the outside circumstances that you can't control, but focusing on changing the things you can control, which is your attitude, your paradigm, your perspective, your perception of the world, the way you think, and then your actions. What are you going to do about those things? And when you change the way that you do things, then the outer world will then change with you as well.
And I'm loving everything you're saying because you and I are very similar in age. I am 29, so we're kind of in the same space lifespan wise. You and I have talked a lot, and a lot of our values and experiences and where we go align. And I think it is so true of what you brought up that your friends are seasoned. Tyler Perry mentions it as friends are like trees. You have your leaves, your branches, your roots. And I think it's totally true. And I've seen it over my time. I had my core group of friends in high school, and I was like, we're gonna be ride or die. A lot of them stayed more local. I went a little farther, and it took everything in me to keep those relationships going once I went away to school because we weren't in the same space anymore. As much as I tried to go, okay, these are my people. When I come home, I'm going to make sure I hang out with them. You start seeing a shift in views, in experiences, and that's okay. It's okay to go sometimes. Okay, this season, it's not that we had this big falling out where, we hate each other, but we can be in the space today where I wish you the best, but we don't have to associate.
Yeah.
I could be your cheerleader from afar. We don't have to talk every day, and wherever your journey takes you, that's great. And where mine takes me, that's great. And I saw it with my friends in college, but I will say with your friends in college, you have your core group. And I think some of them, as you said, as the mind shifts and your values shift, you attract the people who shift with you. And I had a lot of friends in college and I was involved in a lot of different things. But my core 10 people from college, they are my biggest cheerleaders. They're the ones who go, as I was building Achieving Success and the podcast, they were the ones when I had the really long day when I was like, I don't know what to do in this situation." They were the ones building me up going, "Okay, no, you got it. This is, let's talk it out. What do you need from me? You need that ear. What you call when you need to call," kind of thing. And even now in the business space, I get to attract great people as my own experience has changed and things like Luke, and I get to talk and work with individuals like yourself who align very well and also know that we're ever adapting and changing. And it is about putting others first, but also putting yourself as one of those individuals. And I love how you made the analogy to a movie and going on being a servant leader like you are. Let's talk more about Ace branding. When you started Ace branding and throughout the website on everything you do,
Mhm.
you have your mission statement of serving those who serve their community. And that's really what a servant leaders embodies. So for you, why was it so important as you embarked on building this company that you really were wanted to be a servant leader and serve those who are servant leaders? And what does that look like for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Olivia. I think the answer to that goes back to my childhood, actually. So, I grew up in an incredible home. I was really lucky, and my parents always taught me that I can have anything I want in the world as long as I treat others as I'd like to be treated, and I keep God first. And success for me was not something that was like, hopefully it happens one day. It was expected from me. And so, outside of my parents' like core values that they taught to me at a young age, I also had some pretty unique influences in my life as well. So my uncle was in gas and oil, and I saw him make like hundreds of millions of dollars, and so ridiculous amounts of money. And I saw the freedom that they brought. I mean, he bought a one of his estates is in northern Michigan, and he bought houses for all of his family members, and so every year we would have a family reunion there. And I know my second and third cousins better than some people know their brothers and sisters, and it is so cool. And so I saw that was possible, and so that is what sparked the desire into me to become wealthy. But he taught me a lesson. He said, "Luke, there's two types of people in the world." He said, "There's people who love money and use people." And those are wealthy people. They love money and use people, but they're sick on the inside. He said, but then you have the other type of wealthy people. And he says, this is the type of people that type of person I strive to be. The other type are people who love people and use money. And he's like, these are the people who are wealthy, but they also are fulfilled and happy. And he's like, that's who you need to go out there and be. And so, right there in my life, I saw, okay, I can actually help others and still become successful. And then I had another influence in my life, and this was my aunt. And when I was 17, she was the director of the Peace Corps. So she was chosen by Obama to be the director of the Peace Corps. And so I was able to go to Africa at 17 years old, and I was able to stay in the president's guest house. I was there for a month, And while I was there, I had like kind of two different experiences of Africa. One experience was in the president's guest house and literally sitting at the table with the president and my aunt while they're like talking about how to end like a civil war that's happening there. And by the way, the president of Liberia at the time was President Johnson Sirleaf, who was the first democratically elected woman president in Africa ever. Ended up winning the Nobel Peace Prize, by the way, because she ended up ending the war that was happening there. So I got to sit there and see this experience. And so again, highest level individuals in the world, but her heart for loving people and caring people, like that is all they talked about is how to help the people. And so again, this was another example for me that you can become successful, but you do it by helping others. And then the other thing that happened to me, my other 2 weeks when I was in Africa, is I spent it in Nimba. So Nimba is like third world Africa because like President's Guest House is like America and but nicer. Third, like Nimba is like no running water, no electricity, like people don't know where the next meal is type stuff. So it is really third world Africa. And when I was there for 2 weeks, it was the craziest experience. Number one, because it was hilarious because we went to there was like some communities there of like orphans and children. And we went there and these kids are like 3 or 5 years old and they'd never seen a white person before. And so like them seeing me was hilarious. They were like smelling me and like licking me and like they were so confused, which is like hilarious to us because like, we live in America, but to them, they'd have no electricity. They have no technology. They don't have anything. All they know is the people that are there, right? And so that was hilarious. And then also I showed them my phone for the first time. This is like first generation iPhone. And I recorded them and showed them a video of themselves. And it like melted their freaking minds. It was like an alien came in and showed you like alien technology. So crazy. So that was just a funny story. But anyways, what I learned from them was that they were the happiest people I have ever met to this day. I have never met people that are more genuinely, sincerely happy with life, which is crazy because they didn't have anything. They had a little hut, and there's 10 people living in. They have to walk 2 miles to get water and hold it over their head, and like bring it back. So it's like they had nothing. And so that was an interesting thing for me because people who had nothing were happier than the people that I knew in America who had everything. And so that taught me that like happiness was a choice and that maybe becoming successful and getting all the stuff that isn't actually where all the happiness comes from. And so I have all these experiences going on into my life. And then when I find this like affiliate marketing thing when I was in college, I was in a class and we had to write a final paper and the final paper was to combine two or more theoretical perspectives in order to solve a modern world issue. And I'm always like a big thinker. So I'm like, I'm going to solve world peace, right? There we go. That's what I'm going to go and solve. And so, like, my theory that I wrote on this was that there's two different sides of human nature. You have the dark side of human nature that is always kind of out for self. And then you have the light side of human nature that is designed to be able to go and help other people. And there's always, for all of time, there's been this debate of like, are humans innately on the dark side or the light side of human nature? And what I kind of said is, I'm like, if you could create a system, what I call like a complex interdependence, where in order to get what you want, you had to help other people get what they want, you could create world peace. So, for example, if America wanted to be successful, but in order for them to be successful, they had to help, let's say China, who had to help Russia, who had to help, Iraq. America would never bomb Iraq because that would hurt Russia and China and ultimately hurt themselves, right? So by hurting someone else, it would hurt yourself. So you could create a system where the only way you could succeed individually was by helping others succeed collectively. Then through checks and balances, it wouldn't matter if people are trying to help others for their own personal gain or if they're trying to help others because they actually want to help others. The fact of the matter is they would be helping others. And so I kind of had this idea and then this business model that I was in, the whole concept was like, if you can help other people make money, then you make money. And so I was like, whoa, this is crazy. In order for me to make a dime, I got to help someone else make a dollar. So like, I don't even have to focus on my own goals. I just focus on helping other people hit their goals. And if I can help them go and hit their goals, I'm going to hit my goals and more. And so I took this philosophy that I developed as a child and I was able to apply it to a real world business model. And then I started to learn personal development and I started to read books and I started to hear the philosophy from Zig Ziglar that says you can have anything you want in the world if you can help enough other people get what they want. And I'm like, I believe that. I really do. And so now I've taken this philosophy and in every business that I'm in, it's all about serving. It's all about helping other people. Because again, if I can help other people get what they want, I can get anything that I want and more. And so that's why we made it our mission at Ace Branding to serve those who serve others. Because if I can help you, let's say, and you serve all these other people from this amazing podcast, and I can help you amplify that voice, then by helping you, one person, that can domino into helping thousands or tens of thousands or millions, and we can really do our best to leave this world a better place. So that's kind of where all of that philosophy came from.
And I think it's so important, and I love how you tied it into experiences you have had to really show how it has impacted you in your life, but also that analogy used at the end of the dominoes. I think we all forget whether it's a positive impact or that negative, that everything is the domino effect. So what kind of dominoes do you want to be playing with? Personally, myself, I would love to be playing with the good dominoes. I want to
Yeah.
make that good impact, that helpful impact, because I think in society too, it isn't just about us all the time, right? Like you had mentioned, to help someone else, to help yourself and help someone else, you get that dime when they're getting the dollar, but it pays dividends and you never know when that dividend's going to come into play as well. And I think it's important. And those dividends, let me say, can look different. It isn't
Mhm.
always about the dollars that come in, right? That dime turn into 50 cents to into a dollar and a half, but it can look at when you need a helping hand, when you need help getting your child from school because you're stuck in a meeting, you've someone to call on who goes, "Okay, no worries. I got it." You something else happens, whatever it is, but I think it can be very different, and I think it's important to keep that framework in your head, especially as you're evolving, going, "What is my mission? What is my purpose? What will help me fuel my fire?" And really keep down that track because that is one way to make sure that you're always in alignment, what will make you the happiest as well.
Mm. Well said. Well said.
Thank you. Luke, I want to dive more into this branding side because I think branding, no matter if you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, that CEO, or you're looking at personal branding, branding can be so important to how others perceive us at a community level, that state level, an international level. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
It is really how people perceive you and the perception you want people to also see you at. For you, how do you look at branding, whether it's at that business level or personal level?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I would say it's this. It's like a lot of people always ask me, what's the difference between branding and reputation? And I say that like I say reputation to me is more of like character. It's like who you actually are. But I think branding is how people perceive you to be. And I think the goal is to be able to align the two. That's the ideal thing, is to make it so that your brand, your online reputation, your perception of you is in alignment with who you really truly are. And I think this is more important today than it has ever been because the reality is that the old adage that like first impressions last a lifetime is still absolutely true. However, in the digital age, oftentimes that first impression isn't from a handshake or a conversation, but rather from a social media or a Google search. And so if you can anticipate that and then position your brand in a way that when people look you up, it conveys the story, the message, the narrative of who you are, then that to me is someone who's built a successful brand. And I believe that attention is the currency of marketing. And if you look at how attention has shifted, when our parents grew up, right? They'd wake up in the morning, what they do? They'd read the newspaper. Then they'd get in the car and drive to work and they'd listen to the radio. And then they'd get home and they'd watch TV and then they'd go home and they'd do it over again. And so where were all the marketing dollars at? They were in newspapers, radio, and TV. But now, what the heck is everyone doing? They're sitting here grabbing their phone, looking at it all day. And so the attention has shifted. And now that the attention has shifted, the marketing dollars have shifted. And now that the marketing dollars are shifted, now what we have to do is we have to go and shift with it. And that's how we can go and get ahead of other people. And another really interesting thing that I saw, I forget the exact study, and I'm also forget the exact numbers. But if you remember when we were kids, like they do this exam that you do a test, and it's like, what job are you going to want to be? And then like you do these exams, and they say, oh, you're going to be this or you're going to be this. But then in it as well, you answer the questions, but you also get to say what your dream job is. Like if I could do anything, what could I go and do? And I remember when I was a kid, people would be like a professional athlete or an astronaut or whatever the heck it was, a famous singer. And like now, there was a study that they did that 90 some percent of kids said they wanted to be an influencer. 90% say they want to be an influencer. And so, what that tells me is not just where is the attention at right now, but where is the attention going to be in the future? And if all of these kids want to go be influencers, that means where their attention is at is with these influencers. And so if you can turn yourself into a personal brand and you can grow your quote unquote influence online, it's just a massive play to make. And I think that the people who don't do it right now are going to have a very hard time competing with the people who do it, just because this is where the economy is going. And when I say the economy, I mean the economy of attention. And I believe that wholeheartedly.
And I think you brought up a great point as well, not just about how branding can be perceived and the difference between reputation and branding, but also the fact of where's our attention going? And when you want to grow yourself or your business, where keep in mind, where are you looking yourself? Where are you finding what you're deeming the reputable resources, the tools you need, all these things? Because that will also kind of indicate to you, oh, if I'm going here, is everyone else going here? This is what I like to look at, whether that's through images or videos. Do other people? The answer is most likely that your community is going to be yes. Those are
Mm.
the people that you will be like-minded with, who might challenge you. They're looking at similar things as you. So, it's also a great way to kind of scope out how you wanna shape your own brand as well. Luke.
Exactly. I 100% agree, and not to cut you off, but one thing to add into that, which I think is really important, is that it's oftentimes in our business, like we are most qualified to serve past us, right? Especially like I know a lot of people that probably listen to this are like coaches or experts or solopreneurs or different things like that. And so it's like sometimes you have to think about, okay, who is my ideal client? Like who is my ideal customer avatar? And if it is past you, then I think what you just said is the easiest way to be able to figure out where you should be investing your time and your energy. It's like where am I at? Where's my attention at? Because if your client is you essentially, then just simply do what you're doing and you're going to be able to grow. But some people I do know, for example, I have a buddy who owns a med spa. Okay, and like he's like a rough and tumble type dude, so he doesn't even like do the med spa type of stuff, but his clients, right? They are mostly women, mostly age like 45 and older, things like that. And so when he has to think of this, he has to think of, okay, where are their attention at? Where are they at? And so it's like I like to kind of use it almost like a fishing analogy, where it's like, you know, the if you before you go fishing, you have to decide what type of fish you're fishing for. Because if you are fishing for salmon, for example, you're going to use different bait than if you are fishing for sharks. And so it's the same thing in marketing, is that you have to get clear on am I trying to attract? Who's my avatar? What am I fishing for? And then once you get clear on that, you can decide what bait, right, you're going to be able to use to be able to attract those individuals. And I think a lot of people don't take the time to really think about that, but it's a really simple thing that you can do right now in this moment to be able to massively give yourself an advantage from the competition.
And let me tell you, my boyfriend would love the fact you just brought up a fishing analogy. He's a big time fisher, so he's gonna love that. But I think it's really true in anything, just like fishing, you have to come prepared. You have to know what rod you want to use, what bait, what environment you're going to be in, their surroundings, what other animals might be, right? As
Yeah.
someone who hates crocodiles, right? If you tell me there's an alligator or crocodile anywhere around, I'm out. I'm just out. And I've been in environments where they're close by. If anyone's ever been to Hilton Head Island,
Mm,
um, I used to go every summer for a few years, and you'd be riding your bike, and there'd be a sign that an alligator is probably right next to you. Um, but you have to know and be alert of all those things so that you come prepared and you can show up in the way you need to show up and to be successful. And I think you also brought up a point that I want to dive into more. As people look at branding themselves, their business, or doing a revamp, especially in today's environment, what are some of the things they should be thinking about?
that's a really good question, Olivia. So, again, what I like to say is like when people look you up online, when people do their research, right? That first impression in the 21st century is often going to be either a Google search or a social media search. And so, if we can anticipate that, That is where I believe you should invest most of your energy, is making it so that when people look you up online, they will perceive you as credible. So then the next question is like, how do we go and do that, right? So when it comes to Google, one of the easiest ways to go out there and do that is, of course, if you have your own website and you have your social medias that come up and things like that, that's one way to do it. But the other thing to do is you can also get featured in articles. And this is, I think, a really, really powerful point that a lot of people sleep on. Because if you have a website and a social media saying, hey, this is me, this is my area of expertise, trust me, I'm the person to work with if you have this problem, that's fine. But it's also bias, right? It's kind of like a restaurant owner. They come to you and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I just opened up the best restaurant in town. You have to come over to it." It's like, cool, I may come and try it, but like, is it really the best in town? Like, of course you're gonna say that because you own it, but you're biased, right? And so that's kind of like the same feel of when someone looks at a website and look at a social media and stuff like that. It's you promoting you. But if you can get featured in articles, you have third party credibility where it's not you saying how great you are, but it's other people saying how great you are. That's where the real power and the real influence comes from. Just like if a good friend of yours who goes to a bunch of different restaurants and you respect his opinion in this says, hey, I've tried all the restaurants. This one is the best one to go to. It is a third party, unbiased recommendation. And so, therefore, you're going to be more likely to believe that versus somebody who gives you just a biased recommendation. And so, that's why I think if you can figure out how to get featured in articles, which is something that our agency does help people be able to do, is if you're a thought leader, entrepreneur, business, we help people get their story featured in articles where now when people look you up, they don't just see your website and stuff, but they'll see these articles on Google that will tell your story as well. And that conveys credibility and helps separate yourself and differentiate yourself from the competition. And in this ultra competitive world that we live in, those are the little legs up that you can do to get to the next level. And so for anyone listening to this, like applicable information for you to do right now, first things first, like have you Googled yourself recently? Like just Google your name, Google the name of your business. What comes up? And so that's a good place to start. And then you'll be able to kind of learn from that. So the first thing is the Google side of things. The second side of it is social media. And when it's social media, it can get a little overwhelming for people because there's so many social medias. It's like, which one do I focus on? And the answer is, I think you got to figure out which one you naturally feel like comfortable on. Okay. And this is what I mean is that, like, if you're new to this game, like, you cannot go and try and start a YouTube channel and a Twitter and a Threads and a LinkedIn and a Facebook group and an Instagram and a freaking Pinterest, and now you're posting on all of them every single day. Like, it will overwhelm you like freaking crazy. But I'll bet you there is at least one or two social medias that you just naturally go on anyways. Like, they have your attention. Like, frankly, if you open up your phone and you go to your screen time, there's probably a couple of those apps that you're on a little bit more than you'd like to admit, right? And so the idea is find the one that you're already on a little bit more than anything else, and start building your brand there. Because now you don't have to change your behavior. You're already there, but now instead of just being a consumer on that platform, you can become a creator on that platform. And now, rather than letting social media use you, you can use it. And the key first thing that you do, it's so simple, is you just have to post. All right. Just post something to someone. Step number one. Then step number two is post something to someone consistently. Now do it 5 days a week or once a week or whatever you can actually go and commit to. And then from there, increase from there. But that's the only goal I would have if I were you when it comes to social, especially if you're new to this game, is just decide on a social that you're going to focus on building, commit to posting on it at least one time. And then from that post, after you post on it once, then commit to some sort of a schedule that you're going to go and consistently do. And then there's a phrase I like to live by. It's like, go as far as you can see. And then when you get there, you'll see further. That's what will happen. Once you start posting consistently, you will start to see further and you'll start to be like, oh, this is the next thing I could do. I could increase my content here. I could maybe post even more often here. Oh, wait, I could repurpose the content I'm doing on this platform and I could just post the same thing on this platform. And now you start to grow and grow it. And so if you have consistent PR that's coming out so that your Google reputation is consistent with your real life reputation when people Google you, and then you have positive, consistent content going out on at least one social platform that most of your attention is on anyways, then that's going to put you ahead of the vast majority of other people out there that aren't thinking about this at all.
I think you gave some amazing tidbits, and I was laughing in the beginning of that
Mhm.
because it is so true. When I started Achieving Success LLC, I was like, I was talking to someone who was helping me start all the social media channels. and they were like, "We gotta put you on everything." And they gave me this whole plan, and it was like 6 posts a day across the board, and I was like, "How?" First of all, 6 posts a day for what I was doing, and at the time I was working full time. I was like, "I need to," and they were all videos. So I was like, "Wait, that's really gonna mean I'm making a lot more videos than that." And I'm doing the math in my head, and I'm like, this isn't really realistic for the time I have, unless someone else is gonna do it, and then it's not authentic either, and it's not
Right.
my voice. But then also they were like, "We gotta get you on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter," like, across the board, and I'm like, I've never used TikTok and I've never used Twitter. So I'm like, is someone like someone else is gonna need to direct me here. And it felt very like I never even went on the platforms. I would do the post, they would post it for me, and I never went on them. And after a while, the one someone else came to me and we were talking, one of my wonderful producers, and he's going, "Why are you on all these platforms?" And I was like, "Well, they told me to be on all of them, so I was, you know, they're the experts." And
Yeah.
he was like, "Yeah, but where's your audience base? Like, where do you see the most traction and where are you going?" Like you had mentioned. And I was like, "Is LinkedIn, Instagram, maybe Facebook." And he's like, "Okay, so why are you on TikTok?" And I was like, Cause I just thought I had to be because that's where so many people are going." He's like, "But are you getting any traction? Are people coming to you because they saw you on TikTok?" I'm like, "No." And I'm like, "I'm pretty sure it's, like, not even getting any views." And he's like, "So why don't you take that down?" And I'm like, "You have a point. Why are we on this right now?" And
Yeah.
I think that's very true. Sometimes, especially starting out, you think you have to dive fully into every aspect, whether that's social media and being on all the platforms or not. But then as you get more experienced and you kind of look back, like you were saying, as well as you just really find your own balance, you start to realize that people are going to you because they're seeing you on certain platforms where you feel the most comfortable, right?
Yep.
A lot of people reach out to me on LinkedIn, or that's really the brunt of it, and then Instagram. Okay,
Mm.
well, that's where the focus is. I still have, like, the Facebook account because Instagram is linked to Facebook, so it's easy,
Mhm.
and Twitter just for, motivational stuff, but TikTok's out. Some of these other platforms are out because it wasn't authentic to me, and I was like, "We don't need to do this." Also, I don't need to post 6 times a day. I mean,
Yeah.
luckily, I turned that down right away. I was like, "That's too much." But also finding, like you said, the consistency, whether it's in that. I talk to podcast hosts all the time about this of, like, if you come out with what is your strategy? Can you realistically put a new podcast episode out every single day? No? Then when you release your podcast, why are you putting out an episode every single day?
Mm.
And so it's those questions to ask yourself that, like you said, will show not just who you are, but the brand that you want others to be able to connect with as well.
Yeah, that's so true. That is so true. And I think it's like I have a buddy of mine who he used to be 400 pounds and he's now lost 200 and some pounds. And so he's like literally half the person. And he has a community where he specializes in helping people lose over 100 pounds. And the biggest issue that he sees is that people try and like do too much. So it's like they try and cut it cold turkey. It's like, all right, I'm 400 pounds. Now I'm going to the gym every day. I'm only eating, protein. I'm only doing this. And like, they can never sustain it. And so what he teaches them to do is he's like, yo, all you have to do is I just want you to go outside and I want you to walk. All right. And I don't care how long you walk. I mean, walking could be literally walking to the bottom of your driveway and then coming back up. And then that's it. That's the only thing you did today. And then you do that again the next day. And then maybe you're like, oh, maybe I'll go down the street over there and then I'll come back. And then all it is these tiny little steps forward. And then those compounded over time, then a year or two later, now he works out freaking every day and he does this stuff, right? But he didn't start there. And so I think that's the problem that a lot of these coaches have is like you mentioned it. It's like someone's like, you need to go do this immediately. It's like, it's really hard to go from like 0 to 100 that fast. It's like go as far as you can see. And then when you see there, you'll be able, or when you get there, you'll see further and just start. Okay, here's a better way of saying it. I think that it's more about direction than destination, right? Of course, in an ideal world, you'd be having like a bajillion pieces of content going out on every social media platform everywhere. Like, yes, that's going to make it so that you have the most potential eyes on you. But like, it's you're not going to start there. It's about the right direction. Are you getting a little bit better than where you're at today? And as long as you're heading in the right direction, then ultimately I think the destination is it doesn't matter all that much because the destinations change anyway. It's like a goal, right? It's like the first time I was like 6 figures, it'd be crazy. Oh my gosh, I hope I can make 6 figures. And then you hit that and it's like cool for like a minute. And then you're like, oh, now I need multiple 6 figures. Oh, now I need 1 million. Now I need this. And it's a moving target, right? Like there is no such thing as arriving. It's all about the destination and the journey, as freaking cliche as that is, right?
It it's cliche, but it's 100% true. We
Exactly.
we always think, and I actually there was a valedictorian speech that went viral last year or the year before because he had mentioned in his speech, his high school speech, how he worked and didn't look up from the book for basically 3.5 years because his goal was to be the valedictorian. And then he got that, and it was great for a minute. And, that first day, and then he looked and was like, everything I gave up to hold this seat, to have this one moment in time, what could have been my other goals? What could have been the other accomplishments? Now I have to do all these other things to uphold this. And he's like, what is your end destination? But also understand that it's going to change. I think it's important. You reminded me too of when I started the podcast and people were like, okay, this should be the starting goal. If you could get 75 views in a month. I had a real honest conversation with one of my producers, and he's like, listen, for just starting this, not having a celebrity name behind your name, realistically, if you could get this would be unbelievable. And then we got that in like 2 weeks, right? We had 300, over 300 views in 30 days, and we're in 4 countries within the 30 days. And we're sitting there going, oh my God, people are connecting to it. This is what is the next step? And it was great. And then I was like, okay, can we get to 5? Can we get, and even now where the podcast stands, it's in 23 countries. Who knows by the time it changes every day. So we could increase by the time this airs, but it streams 6 out of the 7 continents we are in, right? But now I go, this is amazing. And I just realized the other day that I actually spanned all 6 when I really sat down and, like, looked it up and dove into the countries. But I was like, "How can I get the 7?" Right? No one gets into Antarctica. How
Yeah.
can I get into Antarctica? Is that even feasible? People don't live in Antarctica, so even figuring that part out is gonna be interesting, but it's like it's a perfect example that, like, it's such an accomplishment, and you have to reward yourself for that accomplishment, but you also sit back and go, "Okay, what can I be doing now? Like, what else is the space to do?" Right? And I
Yes.
think it's important to remember that as you're going that you're gonna hit that goal, but, like, it's also about the journey and hitting it. Because the second you hit it, inadvertently, you're gonna go, "Okay, what's the next thing? What is the next thing I could do?" And you're gonna focus on that, and don't forget about those small moments along the way. The moments of, you know, I joke now, me and my boyfriend will be relocating for 2 years to Alaska, so I'll be coming back to New Jersey every 2 months and for a month, and I joke with him, I'm like, "Through my year of being in business, it changed my perspective and also him as a person of being willing to relocate." He's in the Coast Guard, so he's currently stationed in Florida, and I joke, I'm like, before meeting you and also going through the evolution of me within my business and going through these different areas that I already had the skill sets to go through, but hadn't experienced it in that capacity yet. I said, I joked I want to move away from my town. And you got me to fly out to Florida consistently. And now you're getting me to move to Alaska. So I mean, there's a price. It always changes is story to that. But Luke, I
Yes.
think that's a great way to start wrapping up and telling people how can they connect with you if they want to learn more about your story, personal branding, and yourself and ace branding.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Probably the best place to connect with me with is either on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. If you want to learn about Ace Branding, you can go to our website and check that out. Or again, you can check us out on Instagram. We have a pretty good sized page there as well. And yeah, I manage my own page. So if you ever DM me or connect me, I do my best to answer as many people as I can. So, and if you don't answer me, if I don't answer you, by the way, keep blowing me up. I won't think you're annoying. Okay, it'll bump it to the top of my messages, and I will get back to you. I promise I'm not ignoring you.
I love that because some people might feel like, "Oh, I'm annoying." I'm the same way. It's like, I might have missed it, but I sincerely wanna talk to you. So
That's
just give
right.
me that reminder. Thank you, Luke, for all of your insight today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a true pleasure. I love what you're doing, Olivia. It's truly inspiring. I think you're making a massive impact on a lot of people. And yeah, I'm gonna keep cheering you on. So keep going.
Thank you. And I love what you're doing, and I cannot wait to see what Ace Branding continues to do and help so many other people. And a few ways you've helped us today are with some of, your whole conversation, but a few of our key takeaways. And I really want to dive into those now. So a few of our key takeaways from today's conversation is one of the best ways to succeed is by making mistakes so you know what doesn't work and what does work and being able to pick those pieces out of the puzzle and start to fit them together as you try again. Luke said it's all about being willing to make those mistakes and go, okay, I learned from this. Let me try it again and just keep trying until you get what you're looking for, as well as there are seasons of friends. I think that's so important. There are seasons of friends, there are seasons of yourself, and we are all always evolving. So keep that in mind, right? As you're going through this journey, that you are just in a version of yourself. And the next version, you're going to take what you're doing now and what you've taken in all the other seasons of your life and be able to apply it and do awesome things. As well as you should be the main character in your movie. I loved how Luke said that because it's so true. There's the main characters in any movie, and then that like 5-minute slideshow at the end of every part that you're like, wait, that was a part. Someone did that. So just be the main character and keep focused that you are the main character. You have your voice. Use your voice the way you want to do it. As well as failure are your wants of today getting in your wants of and your dreams long term. I think that's so great because it's so true. Sometimes we let the moments that are happening today, right? FOMO, get in our way of, what we're trying to do long term, right? You say yes to every party, then okay, you're partying instead of getting things done, right? So it's about saying no sometimes and putting yourself first so that you can meet your dreams and you can go, this is what this feels like. As well as reputation is who you are and branding is people's perception. And it's great when they're able to meet and you want them to meet. And I think that is what Ace Branding's doing and helping so many others do is being able to introduce both sides of themselves to the world because like Luke said, reputation does still happen in that first 30 seconds to a minute, but the way people are building your reputation is through that first Google search, right? Most of us do it. Don't lie. You start searching things you want to know before a meeting. You want to go in prepared, but you're also then creating those thoughts about someone before even speaking a word to them, as well as before you go fishing, you have to know what fishing tools you actually need. And that relates to so many things as well in our life that we have to keep in mind. We have to show up prepared in the way we need to in that moment to have the most success we can. And goals are ever moving, right? So just like in fishing every day, you can go out and fish, but the fish you might be looking for can be changing. Their environment can be changing. Yours will be too. So just show up with the right tools. This was a great episode with our top-notch guest, Luke Hessler. Thank you for listening and have a successful day.